So let me go through a little history of biomagnetism. This is written by a medical doctor and a PhD. Magnetic therapy may just be gaining more widespread use in the U.S. and elsewhere. The use of magnetic energy for healing dates back thousands of years. Earliest known medical text, the Yellow Emperor's Book of Internal Medicine, published in 2000 BC in China, mentions the application of magnetic stones to correct health imbalances. Chinese medicine is the oldest of all medicines, as they stated, dating back almost 5,000 years ago. And we can read here the oldest known medical book on Oriental medicine, the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, thought to have been written around 3000 BC, mentions the practice of placing magnets on acupuncture points. Magnetic acupuncture has been used in the East in many forms right up to the present. Today, the practice has evolved into applying tiny magnetic discs to acupuncture points. In the West, Swiss physician Marcus Weber, 1992, describes the result of a study using pulse magnetic fields on 1,712 patients with inflammation, joint and organ disorders, fractures and acute injuries, and circulatory disorders. 60% of the evaluating physicians described the outcomes as good or very good, and no side effects were observed. So here we see the history of magnetism. For thousands of years, many cultures such as the Chinese, Egyptians, Arabs, Greeks, Romans, and Indians have used magnets for balancing health. 2000 BC, Greek physician Galen noted in his book De Simplicium Medicamentorum Temperamentis ac Factotatibus the use of magnets for purgative uses. 1000 AD, Persian physician Ali Abbas used magnetism to alleviate spasms and symptoms related to gout. In 1269, Pierre de Maricourt differentiated between the two poles. 12th century Arabs, Vikings, and Europeans used magnets for navigation. And then we get into the 16th century Swiss physician Paracelsus. The ancient Egyptians who built pyramids, we still can't figure out how, why, or how they did it, were apparently acquainted with the power of magnets. Legend has it that Cleopatra slept with a magnetic lodestone in her forehead to preserve her youthful appearance. The word magnet comes from the ancient Greeks. It is thought to derive from magnes lithos, meaning, quote, stone from magnesia, end quote, an area of Greece that was known for its volcanic rocks with magnetic attributes. The Greek philosopher Aristotle spoke about using magnets as healing therapy. Paracelsus, magnets energize the body's life force. The next promulgator of magnetic therapy was Paracelsus, a physician and alchemist born in Switzerland, 1493. He was the first to propose that illnesses were caused by the external substances, the concept of disease, not the imbalances in the body's humors, the dominant theory at the time. Dis-ease. Paracelsus advocated using magnets to energize and influence the body's life force to start the healing process, treating everything from inflammation to diarrhea to epilepsy. In 1600, William Gilbert, court physician of Elizabeth I of England, published the first scientific treatise on magnetism, De Magnete. The term lodestone for magnetized stones is from the Middle Ages, when the lodestone or guiding stone was used in compasses by sailors as a navigational tool to find true north. As above, so below. Mesmer. Magnetism can treat mental illnesses and other conditions. Franz Anton Mesmer, an 18th century mathematician and physician, wrote his doctoral thesis on the effects of the fields on human health. He proposed that there was a magnetic energy flowing throughout the universe and inside the body as well. Mesmer thought the body had magnetic poles and that illness was caused by these poles moving out of alignment with the universal magnetic flow. He experimented with using magnets to treat seizures and other conditions. Mesmer claimed that he could heal by touch, applying his own magnetism to influence the magnetic flow in the patient's body. Mesmer believed that magnetism could treat mental illnesses directly and other conditions indirectly. He became famous for traveling around Europe as a healer, and he later opened a magnetism salon in Paris. In his salon, patients sat in water-filled vats containing iron filings and rods. Patients would pour magnetic water on parts of their bodies affected by illness and sometimes join hands to facilitate the magnetic flow, all accompanied by music and colored lights added by the theatrical mesmer. Patients sometimes fainted or went into convulsions, later claiming they were, quote, mesmerized. That's where it comes from, folks. Mesmerized. Mesmer's notions of magnetism gradually came to be viewed as hypnotic suggestion, hence the current meaning of the word mesmerized. A lot of people here say, oh, it's the placebo effect as well, that don't want to get more deeply into how this works. Around 1800, Alessandro Volta constructed the first battery, which produced a small, steady electrical current. Michael Faraday, the Faraday cages, and others established the link between magnetism and electricity. Faraday demonstrated that a magnet in motion can produce electricity and that the flow of electricity produces a magnetic field. Also, we have Frankenstein showing the energy of magnets being used on Shelley Frankenstein's book, or Mary Shelley's Frankenstein book. The discovery of electron at the end of the 19th century moved electromagnetism to the atomic level, demonstrating that all matter is essentially electric in nature. Magnetic therapy fell into disfavor following World War II and the Flexner Report and the development of antibiotics. Anti means against, bio means life. Antibiotics means against life, and biochemistry-based medicine. Today, magnetic therapy is seeing a resurgence in use and is officially approved therapy in over 45 countries worldwide. Amen. All right, so let's move forward to the mid-1800s when many changes took place in world knowledge, thought, education, and understanding. The American Institute of Homeopathy was formed in 1844. At the time, homeopathy was widely used in the U.S. both by doctors and in the home, and only reached its peak of popularity in the 1870s. At the turn of the 19th century, there were more homeopathic hospitals in the U.S. than any other kind. Allopathy is the curing of disease by inducing an action of a different kind. The American Medical Association, the AMA of Doctors, was formed in 1847 to promote surgery and non-homeopathic medicine and specifically aimed to overcome homeopathy in the U.S. A member of the AMA could be struck off for consulting or even being married to a homeopathic physician. Other therapies, such as electrotherapy, also popular, were not targeted in the same way at the time. The Flexner Report debunked on, quote, non-scientific medicine did not appear until 1910 with the Flexner Report. And I'm not going to get into it here, but the Western medicine is Rockefeller Medicine, founded Columbia Medical School, and the PhD system is all by Rockefeller. Guggenheim, J.P. Morgan at the time founded all of these universities and medical schools to train the doctors in the way they wanted them to be trained. So back to Nikola Tesla. In North America, the practice of magnetic field and ozone therapy went deep underground. The schools that taught it were closed and electricians found jobs in traditional industries, but the war on medicine continued. Many world-renowned doctors felt the AMA had wronged their practice of medicine. In 1932, at a seminar presented at the American Congress on Physical Therapy, Dr. Kolischer announced, quote, Tesla's high-frequency electrical currents are bringing about highly beneficial results in dealing with cancer, surpassing anything that could be accomplished with ordinary surgery. Let me read that again, folks. Tesla's high-frequency electrical currents are bringing about highly beneficial results in dealing with cancer, surpassing anything that could be accomplished with ordinary surgery. 1963, congressional hearings on quack devices forced companies that manufactured legitimate electrotherapy products into bankruptcy, and the FDA put tight restrictions on the electromagnetic medical devices. Medical quack doctors were barred from the AMA. Persons that practiced frequency therapy were put in jail for practicing medicine without a license. The pharmaceutical industry is now dominating force with Valium discovered in 1960. So again, other countries are picking it up. Soviet Union is using Tesla medicine. Germany is using Tesla medicine as well. And it's coming back to the United States. Even Dr. Oz, the one who doesn't vaccinate his children because his wife tells him not to and she runs the house, but he advises vaccines on everybody else, just like the Bill Gates and Hell family doesn't vaccinate. He's bringing out this pulsed electromagnetic field therapy to his American audiences. And here's more on it. teslasmedicine.com, the healing fields of Nikola Tesla. And we don't know this information, folks. We were never taught that Tesla had these healing frequency devices through his Tesla coil, using electrotherapy and magnetic healing, biomagnetic healing. This desire that guides me in all I do is the desire to harness the forces of nature to the services of mankind. And then we can go down here and see the emphasis I place on Tesla in the various videos you will see here comes from realization that he was very influential as being the originator of an extremely advanced magnetic field therapy. He envisioned building schools and hospitals with Tesla coils embedded into the walls when doctors were still shocking their patients with early versions of TENS machines. I want to introduce the audience to a historical perspective of Tesla's medical technology, follow its demise here in the West, migration to Europe, and finally, its return as a legally licensed medical device in Canada and the United States. So this gentleman's made a video called The Healing Fields of Energy Medicine. And just understand too, cannabis, remember cannabis has been banned since 1934 when they showed a black woman allegedly, a white man allegedly raping a black woman, a white woman because she was high on dope, and that started the ban. So Hearst could get his newspapers made not out of hemp oil but out of forestry and many other, to get it hemp, the healing cancer, Simpson oil and whatnot, that heals cancer, from being in the marketplace. We could not have that. So that's another thing that was banned, and now it's being brought to the light. So here, the electricians rushed out to build or purchase these machines without any medical training to start using them on patients. It doesn't take doctors to learn this stuff, folks. The Electrotherapeutic Association was formed in Buffalo with chapters in Hamilton and Toronto because electrical power became available to the public. Hospitals in Buffalo became famous worldwide by offering Tesla treatments and cures for the most serious of diseases, and they could boast a very high success rate. Buffalo became famous by offering Tesla's treatments and cures for the most serious of diseases, and they could boast a very high success rate. So again, Tesla was an empath. He was gifted a human being inspired by the cosmos to introduce the world to electricity to lift the human condition. He died in poverty, and he was concerned about being of service to mankind rather than his own well-being. Nikola Tesla was given a comfortable free room and board in room 3327 in the 33rd floor. Imagine that. He wanted no material things to own other than the materials to create advice, to end World War II, and heal the suffering of humanity. He used natural medicine to improve his health. And closing up here, when Tesla invented and demonstrated his wonderful healing machines, out came the charlatans to capitalize it without doing the research to fully understand the complexities of how they worked. Many electrotherapeutic devices now coming to market under the umbrella of Tesla medicines are highly suspect and have no published research to back up any claims. Now, the difference now in between that and doing this stuff is, here's my chart. So again, the difference here, this is what I just got a reading on myself after my 6th treatment here, and E. coli was found. And as I described before, that this was done by step by step, the low-hanging fruit first, the branches, then the stumps, and then to the root of the problem. So you can see here, this cryptophyllum has returned. This is aerosol spraying, as I reported before, and that returned again, so I got sprayed again. But I did have a contact with the bacteria related to E. coli, and now that has been cleared. Tesla used a radionics device. This is just used as magnets placed around the body. It doesn't require a big box device that they attack Tesla for using the devices as. It's not required in this type of treatment protocol. So again, to emphasize, in 1910 with the Flexner Report, it transformed medical education. Abraham Flexner, it was published in 1910. He was the brother of the president of the Rockefeller Institute and was modeled after Johns Hopkins, and we've been disallowed from using magnetic therapy, energetic healing, universal energetic healing since that time until now. Let's get into Dr. Randolph Stone.
So we covered how Tesla was buried with the Flexion Report in 1910 by Carnegie and the Rockefellers, and they banned it through the AMA and called it quackery. But after that, Dr. Randolph Stone came up and he developed the polarity therapy, he called it, and he lived from the 1890s to 1980. And this is where I believe Dr. Goy's got his information from about energetic healing. And Dr. Randolph Stone has these charts in his book on polarity therapy that's showing the energies of our body that ties in the caduceus that use the doctors, use the staff, and the winged disc, which is everywhere. The winged disc there at the top. Chrysler has the winged disc at the top. But you can see the polarities, the balances, the different energy fields associated with our bodies, with our anatomy, with our nervous systems, the sympathetic nervous system, and all of the rest of our immune systems as well. And it gets at the tissue level. And he has all these brilliant charts that he came up with in this book I think this is from the 1960s when he published this book, but it shows all the different polarities and all the different associations in our bodies where it starts the healing from the head, the cerebrum, down to all the way down to our feet. And it's very profound what he does and how he did it, because he shows that how it's connected as above, so below, that the fields in our body are also the fields that resonate in the universe as well. So he has universal energy healing here, and it's all synchronistic in our bodies as well, using this polarity therapy. And what the magnets do, as I said, is pulls us back. Since we're pushed out of shape, we're pushed out of homeostasis, balance. Well, Dr. Stone used all these charts to show how we could bring them back. Now, he also showed that using heels for healing could possibly have been the work that he did as well. But Dr. Goy's took the heels from there and started using it for the energy healing, and could get one foot to go longer than the other when he wanted to do the treatments to find out where the different issues are around over 300 circadian points on our body. Well, Dr. Luis Garcia, who I took the workshops with this weekend, was showing us that we can not only do that, but we can do it through our hands. We can do it through our wrist, and we can even self-test through our thumbs. There was one gentleman there, Werner, hey Werner, that was there from Austria, who was showing us how he's a dowser, and his father was a dowser, and he does what's called ecopathology. Ecopathology is going through homes and clearing the negative energies out of home, and he uses his hand. He didn't use any of these other indicators to find out where the issues were. He was using one hand to do it because he'd been doing it so long. The energy was literally flowing through him, and as we all have energy flowing through us. So the history of Western universal energy healing has been suppressed and repressed, but it's coming back out again. It is the universal principle of healing. It is what we're all made from, and two is from where we come from. And in every culture and in every medical tradition before ours, healing was accomplished by moving energy. We're moving energy around our bodies, and maybe this is why they call it the soul, because we're using the soles of our feet at the base fundamental grounding of earth. And why they use heels is this is why it's called healing. Here's a picture of a cell phone and all the negative energy. Look at the red, it's the worst of all. And then you can also check it out with Carillion photography to show that the cell phones, before and after cell phones, you get a much healthier body. So the invisible field electromagnetic energy is picked up with this Carillion photography, and you can see the human emanations of when we're out of homeostasis and our cell structures are out of whack, so is our aura. And then once we get it in balance, we go from a sick to a healthy person. We're in homeostasis energetically and spiritually and physically. These are there's an actual picture of Carillion photography of energy fields after treatments. And so there's many parts of our energies that are right outside our body. One reason they call it surgery in the hospitals is because it's surging. It's electrical power. That's why they use the paddles to start your heart with electromagnetism to bring your heart back again, because they're using energy and electricity. And what it does on the cellular level is brings it back and rebuilds and restores. So using Kirlian photography, they found that not only can we find what a healthy body is once it's been treated, and we can prove empirically that biomagnetic energy works, but it also is the same on plants. Here is a flower with has energy, and then here's a one with has after the Kirlian photography a picture of it. How about raw foods versus cooked foods? You can see the complete loss of energy with cooked foods. Here is a mushroom that has been organic mushroom versus commercially grown mushroom. You are what you eat. Hippocrates would not do any treatments, the father of Western medicine. Here's a strawberry. Hippocrates would not do any treatments in Western medicine without reading somebody's astrology chart, because we're all connected to the ether. We're all connected in the universal principle. And as above, so below. As within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. So here we have our energy beings, and now we're looking to talk about frequencies. We're looking to talk about universal energy healing using these magnetic principles. And so I'm very excited and very blessed to be able to learn about this treatment and protocols that we can start offering. And here's the different energy areas where you could be going through to start the treatments. And in the next video, or videos, if Dr. Garcia okays it, I'll be releasing some of the videos we took from the seminar. But is it true that Jesus was a healer too, and the reason he washed the feet of the apostles, not to show his humbleness in his last act before he was crucified, was but because he was grabbing their heels to start to heal them biomagnetically, bioenergetically, using biofeedback? Bio is life. Anti means against. Antibiotic, against life. Think about what they're doing to us, folks. Think about Bill Gates and everybody's plans. Think about the plague outbreak that occurred out in Oregon here a few weeks ago, I chronicled, with the Yersinia pestis virus that went live because it was found in me. It was found in the healer that was treating me and others. And Dr. Garcia said he's finding Yersinia pestis in a lot of people. And then Bill Gates is warning of an epidemic that could kill over 30 million people. So here we have an answer. We can clear this from people. We can heal them using biomagnetic energetic healing. So we are becoming light healers. We were becoming a higher consciousness. And we have those that are still around to thank, and then those to thank also from previous that laid the foundations from which we are learning and growing from, including Dr. Goyes from Mexico, who's been doing the treatments for 20 years, who possibly likely got the information from Dr. Randolph Stone, who got it from Tesla, who got it from the ancients. And Dr. Luis Garcia from Colombia has moved to the United States. And like I said, for 11 years, he worked under Dr. Garcia. He took a lot of seminars from him, but now he's taking it to another level, to a 4.0, 5.0. This stuff really works. Anybody in the workshop will tell you we've seen it work in just a few days of treatments. We could help each other. All of us had success with helping one another restore our biomagnetic balance through pair therapy, through balancing through magnetism, and also learning how to diagnose properly. And this stuff works on everyone and everything. So I'm really excited. I'll let you know when we're going to do the seminars. If I can get Dr. Garcia out here to California, hopefully this fall, to teach one, I'll definitely let you know. But if you'd like to be notified, please just drop me an email, and I'll put you on the list, and I'll notify you of when Dr. Garcia will be teaching the next seminar. All right, Plain Truth out, and here's towards healing the world. I'm so excited to bring this to you. Peace and love one another.
In researching biomagnetics the past few months, going back into the history, this book, Vibrational Medicine by Dr. Richard Gerber, has shown me the history in a way that I can't find anywhere else. So I'm going to read from this. This is an excerpt from the book here. Psychic healing as an aspect of human potential, an historical look at its evolution through the ages. The use of laying on hands to heal human illnesses dates back thousands of years in human history. Evidence for its use in Egypt is found in the Ebers Papyrus dated back to 1552 BC. This document describes the use of laying on hands healing for medical treatment. For centuries before the birth of Christ, the Greeks used therapeutic touch therapy and their Asclepian temples for healing the sick. The writings of Aristophanes detail the use of laying on hands in Athens to restore a blind man's sight and return fertility to a barren woman. The Bible has many references to laying on of the hands for both the medical and spiritual applications. It's well known that many of the miraculous healings of Jesus were done by the laying of hands. Jesus said, quote, "These things that I do, so can ye do and more." Laying on the hands of healing was considered part of the work of the early Christian ministry as much as preaching and administering the sacraments. In the early Christian church, laying on hands was combined with the sacramental use of holy water and oil. Over the following hundreds of years, the healing ministry of the church began to gradually decline. In Europe, the healing ministry was carried on as the royal touch. Kings of several European countries were purportedly successful in curing diseases such as TB by laying of hands. In England, this method of healing began with Edward the Confessor and lasted for 7 centuries and ended with the reign of the skeptical William IV. Many of the early attempts at laying on of the hands healing seem to be predicated upon a belief either in the powers of Jesus or the king or a particular healer. There were other contemporary medical theorists who felt the special vital forces and influences of nature were the mediators of these healing effects. A number of early researchers into the mechanisms of healing theorized on the likely magnetic nature of the energies involved. One of the earliest proponents of a magnetic vital force of nature was the controversial physician known as Paracelsus from 1493 to 1541. Now remember the ages of Columbus, 1492, it's all coming around at the exact same time. In addition to these discoveries of the new drug therapies, Paracelsus founded the sympathetic system of medicine according to which the stars and other bodies, especially magnets, influenced humans by means of a subtle emanation of fluid that pervaded all space. His theory was an attempt to explain the apparent link between human beings and the stars and other heavenly bodies. This is also why astrology works. It's their energy beings. The stars are called luminaries. The ancient called them luminaries because they were light beings. Paracelsus's sympathetic system may be viewed as an early astrological insight into the influences of the planets and the stars of human illness and behavior. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, would never diagnose a patient without looking at his astrological chart first. Western medicine has completely lost this connection to the heavens and healing. The proposed link between humans and the heavens above was thought was through a subtle pervasive fluid, perhaps an early construct of the, quote, ether which exists throughout the universe. He attributed magnetic qualities to the subtle substance and felt that it was possessed unique qualities of healing. He also concluded that if this force was possessed or wielded by someone, then that person could arrest or heal diseases in others. Paracelsus stated that the vital force was not enclosed inside an individual, but radiated within and around him or her like a luminous sphere which could be made to act at a distance. Considering the accuracy of this description of the energies surrounding people, one wonders whether or not Paracelsus could clairvoyantly observe the human auric field. This gets into Kirlian photography, which the Russian Kirlian developed to show our auras. They could photograph it now. Also in plants, also in animals. After Paracelsus' death, the magnetic tradition was carried on by Robert Fludd, a physician and mystic. Fludd was considered to be one of the most prominent alchemical theorists of the early 17th century. He emphasized the role of the sun in health as a source of light and life. What are we having now? Vitamin D deficiency, because everybody's indoors in their glass homes, driving in their glass cars, working in their glass offices, and the sun is not what it used to be. The sun was considered the purveyor of life beams required for all living creatures on earth. One is reminded of the Indian concept of prana, the subtle energy within sunlight, which is assimilated through the process of breathing. In 1778, a radical healer stepped forward to say that he could achieve remarkable therapeutic success without the need for patients' faith or belief in the healing powers of Jesus or himself. Franz Anton Mesmer claimed that the healing results which he obtained came through the enlightened use of a universal energy which he called fluidum. Mesmer claimed that fluidum was a subtle physical fluid that filled the universe and was the connecting medium between people and other living things, and between living organisms, the earth, and the heavenly bodies. This theory is quite similar to Paracelsus's astrological concept of sympathetic medicine. Mesmer suggested that all things in nature possessed a particular power which manifested itself through special actions upon other bodies. He felt that all physical bodies, animals, plants, and even stones were impregnated with this magical fluid. In fact, the ancients used lodestones, which are magnetic. During his early medical research in Vienna, Mesmer discovered that placing a magnet over areas of the body afflicted with disease would often effect a cure. Experiments with patients who had nervous disorders often produced unusual motor effects. He noted that successful magnet treatments frequently induced pronounced muscle spasms and jerks. He came to believe that magnets he used for therapy were mainly conductors of an ethereal fluid which issued forth from his own body to create subtle healing effects in patients. He considered this vital force or fluid to be of a magnetic nature, referring to it as, quote, animal magnetism, to distinguish it from mineral or ferromagnetism. Through his research, Mesmer came to believe that this subtle energetic fluid was somehow associated with the nervous system, especially when his treatments would often cause involuntary muscle spasms and tremors. He hypothesized that the nerve and body fluids conveyed the fluidum to all areas of the body where it animated and revitalized those parts. Mesmer's concept of fluidum is reminiscent of the ancient Chinese theory of qi energy, which flows through the meridians, feeding the vital force to the nerves and tissues of the body. Mesmer realized that the life-sustaining and regulating actions of the magnetic fluidum were integral to the basic process of homeostasis and health. When the individual was in a state of health, he or she was considered to be in harmony with these basic laws of nature as expressed by a proper interplay of the vital magnetic forces. If disharmony occurred between the physical body and the subtle forces of nature, sickness was the end result. Mesmer later realized that the best source of this universal force was the human body itself. He felt that the most active points of energetic flow were the palms of the hands. By placing the practitioner's hands on patients for direct healing, energy was allowed a direct route to flow from the healer to the patient. Because of Mesmer's influence through this revolutionary period in French history, the technique of laying on hands, otherwise known as, quote, magnetic passes, end quote, became quite popular. Unfortunately, many scientific observers at the time considered mesmerism to be clearly an act of hypnosis and suggestion. To this day, many scientists still refer to hypnosis as mesmerism. This is the origin of the term mesmerized. Bet you didn't know that. In 1784, the King of France appointed a commission of inquiry into the validity of Mesmer's experiments in healing. Among the commission were members of the Academy of Sciences, the Academy of Medicine, the Royal Society, as well as the American statesman scientist Benjamin Franklin. The experiments which they devised were constructed to test the presence or the absence of the magnetic fluidum, which Mesmer claimed was the healing force behind his therapeutic successes. Unfortunately, none of the tests devised by the Commission were concerned with the measurement of fluidum's medical effects. You don't test what you don't want to find. The conclusion of this prestigious commission was that fluidum did not exist. Surprise, surprise. Although they did not deny Mesmer's therapeutic success with patients, they felt that the medical effects which Mesmer produced were due to the sensitive excitement, imagination, and imitation of other patients, aka the placebo effect. Nothing to do with magnets. Interestingly, a committee of the medical section of the Académie des Sciences examined animal magnetism again in 1831 and accepted Mesmer's viewpoint. However, despite this validation, Mesmer's work never achieved widespread recognition. As more recent laboratory investigations into the physiological effects of the laying on hands have confirmed the magnetic nature of these subtle healing energies, researchers have demonstrated that Mesmer's understanding of the magnetic nature of the subtle energies of the human body was centuries ahead of his contemporaries. As will be shown, direct measurement of these energies by controversial tools of electromagnetic detection are as difficult today as during Mesmer's time. Mesmer also discovered that water could be charged with a subtle magnetic force, and that stored energy from bottles of healer-treated water could be transmitted to sick patients by way of a metallic iron rods which patients would hold in their hands. The storage device, which is used to relay healing energy from the charged water to patients, was known as the baquette. Although today many consider Mesmer to have been a great hypnotist, there are few who really understand the pioneering nature of his research into the subtle magnetic energies of healing. And just a quick sidebar on water. Dr. Robert Miller of Atlanta, Georgia, research chemist, has studied the biological effects of healers. Miller has been able to experimentally confirm Dr. Grad's discovery of healers' ability to disrupt hydrogen bonding in water. He found significant similarity between the energetic fields of magnetic fields and the field effects noted with the psychic healers. So getting down to here, Miller discovered that metallic stirring rods placed in contact with energized water would provide a route for the healing energy to flow in a specific direction. This discovery confirms the rationale behind the bouquet that Mesmer used for treating patients nearly 200 years ago. Dr. Miller found a number of interesting similarities between magnet-treated and healer-treated water. He created a unique experiment. He placed a solution of supersaturated copper sulfate in a magnetic field at 4,500 Gauss. Gauss is the Tesla measurement for magnets, for 15 minutes. When the crystals eventually formed, Miller noted they were of the turquoise blue variety noted in the healer-treated solutions instead of the usual jade green. The experiment to measure further physiological similarities between the effects of magnet-treated and healer-treated water, he selected 3 groups of seeds, each composed of 25 rye seeds. At the end of 4 days, he looked to see how many of the 25 rye seeds in each group had sprouted. Dr. Miller found that the seeds which had been watered with regular tap water had an 8% germination rate, whereas seeds watered with the healer-treated water showed a 36% germination rate, or a 4-fold increase in the number of new sprouts. Now, if you're having to live off the lands and food's important, you think this is important information, folks. But even more surprising was Miller's discovery that seeds which had been watered with magnetic treated water showed more than an 8-fold increase, or 68% rate of seedling germination. So again, to follow up a little bit more on this, Dr. Krieger looks at healers and hemoglobin, the evolution of therapeutic touch. Dr. Krieger, now professor of nursing at New York University, was particularly fascinated by Grad's observation that plants watered with healer-treated water showed an increase in the amount of chlorophyll present in their leaves. Krieger wished to examine and confirm the effects of healers on humans in an analytical method which would separate the influence of belief. The experimental work of Grad and Smith had convinced her that true energy effects occur between patient and healer, even when the patient is only a sick plant or a wounded mouse or even a damaged enzyme. She wished to extrapolate the known information from studies of healing in non-human systems toward an experiment which would confirm the healing energy influence in humans. In 1971, shortly after his work with Dr. Grad, Mr. Estebany, a healer used in Grad studies, was asked to participate in just as an experiment. The research was conducted by a medical doctor and a clairvoyant who were studying the healing process. Krieger joined the group as a fellow researcher, offering her skills as a healthcare practitioner. The study was conducted on a farm in the foothills of Berkshire Mountains in New York, utilizing as subjects a large group of medically referred patients with various illnesses. I'll get down to the results here. Krieger measured hemoglobin levels in both groups of patients before and after a series of healing treatments to the experimental group. Similarity to electricity, some healers, as mentioned previously, have referred to healing energy as para-electricity. Nurses who had taken Krieger's course slowly became proficient in the doing laying on hands of healing. Krieger herself found that the more she worked with it, the more effective a healer she became. Healing seemed to be a kind of subtle energetic gymnastics exercise. The more time and work an individual would put in, the better at healing they became. This relatively small group of nurses whom Krieger had trained began to practice their healing of some of their hospital patients. Although some felt they were a bit strange, patients did appear to get better faster when therapeutic touch was added to the regimen of therapy. They also worked their healing ministrations on anyone that would be willing to try an experiment. This would occasionally include sick and wounded stray dogs and cats with whom certain nurses achieved remarkable results. After observing some of the results obtained by the healer nurse trainees, Krager became firmly convinced that non-psychic individuals could be taught to do the healing. She concluded that therapeutic was much a natural human potential which could be demonstrated by individuals who had a fairly healthy body. In addition, these qualities the potential healer had to be educable because though therapeutic touch might seem like a simple act, she found that in reality it was quite complex to do in a conscious manner. Krieger's study utilized registered nurses who were under her direction in hospitals and other health facilities in the metropolitan New York area. She studied 32 registered nurses and 64 patients designed similar to her two previous research projects. 64 sick patients were divided into two groups, 32 each. The control group had a regular medical and nursing care under the direction of 16 non-healers. The experimental group of patients had similar care except that 16 Krager-trained nurses performed therapeutic touch in addition to their regular medical care. Hemoglobin levels were measured in both groups. The two groups were compared for differences. In the nurse-healer treated group, there were statistically significant increases in hemoglobin. Her statistical analysis showed that the odds against the results obtained due to chance were less than 1 in 1,000. Now, this is in the new book, the 3rd edition, but it's not in this link here, so I'm going to have to read from it. Krieger's study was repeated in 1973 with a larger group of patients and even stricter controls to answer criticisms directed toward the design of her study. 46 patients in experimental group and 33 ill patients in her control group. Again, she achieved similar data. The tendency for healing energy to increase hemoglobin has been found to be so strong that cancer patients who have undergone laying on hands healing have occasionally shown rises in hemoglobin levels in spite of treatment with bone marrow suppressive agents, which would predictably induce anemias. Many unique applications have come from the use of this healing art in the hospital setting. In one preemie unit in New York, nurses began to use therapeutic touch on premature infants as part of their medical care. The medical staff began to note such tremendous strides in infant progress and weight gain that they sheepishly asked the nurses what they were doing that was different from the usual regime. Eventually, all doctors and nurses in the neonatal unit were taught to use therapeutic touch on the infants, including many inquisitive parents who wished to give their children every possible chance for a healthy survival. In another hospital in New York, doctors and nurses in the emergency room began to use therapeutic touch to ease and quiet many of their patients coming in and out of psychedelic drug overdoses. Utilization of this technique has met with interesting success.